Hi everyone and welcome to the third part of this watercolour rose tutorial. Today we're going to focus on finishing, getting down all of the rose petals and starting to get a little bit of detail down and possibly adding down the green leaves as well. So I'm just going to jump straight in. Everything is laid out the same as it has been the past couple of videos. If you're not entirely sure what I mean, please go back and watch them. All available to view, where you can catch up to where I am now. So like I say, just going to go straight in there and continue putting down petals for this rose in particular. So I'm going to use the thinner paintbrush just because we're down to the small details now. And if you take a look at the this top section of this particular rose, there's a couple of lighter bits and then it gets progressively darker the further back you get where the petals fall. So I'm going to put down that really light petal that falls here. Just going to put some water down in that area. I'm going to go in with this light pinky sort of colour. Just need a little bit and we can blend that out. As like I say, it's really light. In this section. There's also a petal that curves round quite a bit at the top. It starts around here and then curls all the way down. I say curls, it curves the way a rose petal should. So same again, I'm just wetting that area. Now I'd say it's this same colour still at the top. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that in. Say to around here. Just a tiny bit of that darker, slightly darker purple. Literally just lining the top. See how that then bleeds out. I'm going to use more of this yellow colour. Again, I'm just blending that down. Also going to put a bit of that orangey blue. Cleaning the brush now, as I've only dotted a little bit in there, and then we can blend all of that down. Then if we go down to this petal here, we've actually already done part of this petal. I'd say that this one here is probably connected to it. It might not be actually, but it kind of looks like an overlap anyway. But because again there's the overlap, it's good to treat it as two separate areas. So again, I'm just wetting that section and then we can go in with the colours. Start out with this really dark purple, the darkest one we've got, just to give it a little bit of shape here. then it gradually gets lighter, so clean the brush and use a little bit of this pinky orange. Blend that throughout. Then some of this yellow. Same again, I'm going to dot a bit of orange in there, one that's got a bit of blue in. Might even dot a little bit of this pink. Clean the brush and then we can blend all this out. And put some of this down the top here. If you feel more confident just waiting a little bit for things to dry, please do. A bit there. So we do have the base for the first two roses now. It's a little bit here actually, could do with a bit of that colour. That darker purple, just to bleed around the top. There we go. Yeah, like I say, you can start going in with some colour once we're confident that everything has basically been done for these two roses. Say colour, sorry, more detail. But here I'm going to really darken that with that darkest purple. And then I might give this like 5 minutes or so just to make sure everything's dry. We could go in and add more detail to the roses, more base colours for like this other rose that's coming out at the top here, but I just want to give these two areas a bit more attention right now. So like I say, I'm going to let this dry for 5 minutes and then we can go in and add some really nice detail. I'm very excited to start putting the detail down. And then we can focus on other areas, i.e. this last rose section and some of the leaves. So everything is now dry and we can go in for the detail. Left it a little bit longer than 5 minutes just to really make sure. Just means that we can go in now and we don't need to worry. Everything is, you don't have to think too much about it. So I'm going to start with this first rose that's front and centre and this really big petal that I think is at the forefront. It's where the focus is in my opinion. So I really want to make sure I get that right and then kind of work from there. So I'm using some of this the darkest purple to begin with, and I'm just gonna give everything that little bit of shape like it has in the reference photo. So just going to map around, as you can see. Just very slowly, making sure And this is just going to really emphasise where everything is, like for this first petal. Like so. And then if you, again, looking at the reference photo, you can see that the majority of this dark purple is, I would say, at the top here, that comes under to about, say, here for now. I can always bring it down further if needed. Does kind of curve around with it up to, I would say, the majority of it is about here, and then it starts to get a lot thinner as you come down there. Clean the brush. I'm going to add a bit of this purple that's got a little bit more pink in it. Again, it's also that little bit lighter. I'm going to put this slightly underneath, like so. So it's not touching just yet. Also put some of it really thinly, like so. So I'm going to clean the brush and we can start to blend everything together now. It's just scraping the excess water off. Might need to clean the brush as you don't want too much of the purple, you want it to be a nice blend. So far we're just blending the colours together, we are not blending out. We'll do that in just a second. Again, cleaning the brush, and now we can do the blending out. So scraping off the excess water again and going underneath this, just kind of pushing into it so you get a natural blend out, but it's just that little bit more controlled, mainly because we've not used the wet in wet method. Cleaning the brush as well at this point, as I don't want this to have all that dark purple in there, but I'm still bleeding out even this detail here, as we don't want it to be a really harsh line. Might even put a little bit of the orange under there. And then a little bit of this yellow, the brightest one that we have. Again, just slightly under it, and then we can blend that out. Same way that we've done just a second ago. A bit more orange in. I'm going to put some of this orange with a little bit of blue in, just slightly underneath this purple, so I'm just going to put a little line in, and again just blend that out, same way as before, not doing anything differently. And I'm going to be careful not to go too far up into that purple. Looking at that purple, making sure there's not a lot of water on the brush. put a bit more of that colour in. So you can keep altering, adding, taking away, easier to add it, so I'd recommend just taking it slow. So I'm not blending out, I'll show you what I mean a little bit more. So if I put this down to about here, where it falls in the reference photo. So I'm not blending out on the right hand side of that line, as if you look at the reference photo, there is just that little bit of a crisp line, which is the purpose of mainly putting in this detail now. So I'm being careful not to take that away, as this is obviously the detail that we're now putting in. I want this to be as accurate as possible. Making sure to blend out that colour still, as it got a little bit patchy with that orange. Probably wait for this to dry now, this particular section that we're working on, as I want to just add a few little dainty lines in. We'll put a bit of this orange in that's got some blue in there at the bottom of here to give it a little bit more shape. Blending that out. Going to use a little bit of this yellow. It's not the brightest one we've got, but it's still quite bright. Just to put a little bit more of that line in so it matches up to it, as it does go more into that yellow colour. And again, I can blend that out the same way we've done with this pink, really. Slash purple, probably more purple. Can put in, using that lightest yellow, just a tiny little bit on the brush there, so you can see I'm really scraping that off. And then just being conscious of that line we've just put down, and it's wet on the left hand side of it. So the right hand side I can put just a couple of little details. So it's just a few little lines that kind of creep through there. So I'm going to add more detail now elsewhere and then come back to this particular petals. I don't want to overdo it, but already that purple edge here. I think it looks amazing. I'm so happy with it so far. I'm really excited to see how this further develops. So I'm going to move on to this petal here that comes out. I would do this one here, as I think that's the next sort of where your eye's drawn to, but I want to allow this petal to dry, so I think we'll do this one, maybe a couple more before coming back to this one here I've just mentioned. So I would say this one's got a lot of orange within it, so I'm going to start out with that bright orange. Don't need a lot of this, just scraping off the excess. And yeah, we can start putting in the details. So I'd say around the right hand side you've definitely got a couple of lines that creep through. There's kind of one like so. So just a few. I think the majority of the detail within this rose will be just adding a few little lines. That's going to really help bring the petals to life. So I'm just going to do that throughout this whole area. And then we can go in with this that's got a little bit of blue in there. So this is for more of the shadow, which I would say, you can see there's quite a bit. Oh. Comes out where this petal here is casting light onto it. I'm going with a bit of pink as well, as I think it's quite easy to fully take away that vibrancy this has definitely got, and just go in with the orange. But I want to just keep in mind that there is that pink there. So this is going over a little bit of the shadowed area, and it will bleed at this point, mainly just due to the fact that there's been quite a few lines added in, so it will bleed into the orange, but I'm okay with that as it means there's more of a natural blend of colour. Again, I'm going to let this dry, might go in a little bit more later, but I'm pretty happy with that. So looking at the reference again, going to add a little bit of orange to this petal here. So I think there's quite a lot of pink in there, and there is just that little bit of orange around this edge. Being conscious that this isn't fully dry yet, so I don't want to go into that, but I'm definitely keen to get that detail down. You can always again pause the video, wait for it to dry. So it's not really touching it. And then just a little bit of crimson coming from that to about here. And then I'm going to clean the brush and blend all this out, as it's looking quite harsh at the moment, and we want these colours to bleed out, particularly at the top, as it is that little bit lighter. And it will also help with the natural flow of colour. It will make everything look a bit softer, a bit more natural. Oh, I don't know where I was expecting to go with that. I'd like to say my hand slipped, but I definitely just put it down in the wrong spot. Probably again when this is dry I'm going to add a crisp line of that darker purple, as it's just going to bleed out quite a lot now at this stage. I'm going to go in actually already with this petal at the front and centre, like I mentioned just a little while ago, as I think everything's pretty much dry already in this area. This section is still drying, but again, it's the more of the focus is the top of this petal, so I'm not too worried. Say to around here, and then again that really thin line. It's a really good way to practice how you control the paint and just the steadiness of your hand. Some of that purple that's got a bit more pink in there underneath. Same as before really, that we did at the start of the detail. Got a strip of pink in there, all that pinky purple. And some of that orange, the orange with the blue. And blending them together. Not going to blend out that top purple bit, as I do think it is quite harsh in the reference photo, but feel free to if you want more of that natural flow, but I like how harsh that looks. Kind of just gone over all the colours there that were already down and just made sure to emphasise them, as they are significantly darker than say the petal that's here over the top of it, and because it's the bottom of the flower and the light is coming, I'd say the light's coming, just how to describe, I'd say it's coming head on almost, like if it was here and then shining down like that. I don't know if that explains it very well. I'd say it's more from the centre, slightly above it, than anywhere else. Again, as well, or more on the right. So yeah, it would make sense that this is a particularly dark section of the flower. I can also go in with this really light yellow. Add a couple of them lines in that I mentioned not too long ago. Is everything I'm quite satisfied with how it's drying. So keeping it really light. Orangey blue more at the top. Then blend that with a little bit of water. If you're not happy with how dark it is, I think they looked, this orangey colour looked a bit too much. So I'm just slightly blending them, but you can still see them lines. So again, I'm not completely taking away what's going on. Darkening up down at the bottom a little bit more. Just as that's dried, it's gotten a bit too light for how I'd want it. it's just going in, putting in a few lines, nothing too crazy going on there. We can let all that dry now. I'm going to go back in with this really dark purple. Put a little bit at the top here. This petal, getting that crisp line, as I think that's definitely gone that little bit lost, mainly because we kept everything light around this area. So it's definitely very detailed, there's not much of bleed out going on. And I'd say we can put in just the start of a couple of them areas with this shadow. Going in with that pinky purple. It's just slightly underneath, don't need a lot of this today. That's dried up really fast. Connecting that with that pinky orange, and then we can just very carefully start to blend this out. So very carefully, because we want to keep that crisp edge but make it look just a little bit softer. There we go. I'm going to continue to blend this down a little bit. Add a bit of that yellow there as well, just so it blends a little bit more and you've got more of that yellow in there and it's not going to all turn into a dark purple. And again, we can let this dry now, move on to another section. And I think taking a look, we can put a little bit of colour, see a little bit of that pink into this area, as this section is connected to this. Just a bit of overlap with this dark purple petal. So just a little bit of pink. Kind of just dotted that in, as you can see. It looks a bit strange right now. And then same with a tiny bit of orange. Want more pink than orange, I would say, in this part. So I think it gradually gets a bit pinker the higher up it gets. And then with a clean brush, blending this out, starting from the edges as it's darker there. And then as we come to the middle, I can clean the brush and blend it out so that it's lighter in that section. I'm going to move on to this petal here, so that one was really nice and easy. I'm going to use this orange, it's got a tiny bit of blue in, just to create that really fine line that separates, I would say, these two petals. And same with this pink that's got some orange in there around the edge of this area. Now it's good to notice what's going on around this section, for example. Yes, if you look at just this petal, I'd say this area's got a lot of pink in it, but it's no darker than this petal to the left of it. So I'm being conscious of that. It's going to help get the shadows right. So it's noticing where to darken up a lot and where not to. So I'm focused on petal at a time, but also looking at what's going on around it before I then go in with the colour. See a bit more of this. Really happy with how that's come out straight away. So I'm going to add some detail to this one that's coming out it's quite a big section of the petal actually. I think to start with we will focus on this darker area and then the lighter. So just a tiny bit of this really dark purple. Just to tidy up a little bit of the edge. Like so. And then this next purple. Again, going back to noticing other petals, the reason I've moved on to this slightly lighter purple already is because if you look at these two really dark sections of the whole flower, this is dark, this whole petal, but not as dark as them areas. So it's just being conscious of that and knowing where to, like I say, put these colours. Really neatening up the distinction between this petal and this dark one next to it, as I think that's just slightly gotten lost because they're quite similar, but this crisp edge will help with that at a later stage. Just going to put a bit more of an edge with that darker purple. There we go. I'm going to transition back to the top of the rose, so there is quite a lot of mix matching going on here. I might mix some more of this colour just just because I think it's gotten lost slightly. There we go, super simple. Yeah, I'm going to use this now over start of this petal here. It's kind of like a faint little line that goes through, say around there, so we can blend out from that. Let's say it goes into quite a dark purple. Sorry, just moving the reference photo for myself. Like I say, where were we? Putting in that dark purple on the top. And a couple of little arches, I would say, that probably represent just a really, because it does get a little bit blurry here, so it's kind of like that blurred overlap. A little bit of pink as we come down to here. Put a tiny bit of that dark purple just to help with that line. And a little bit of that bright yellow just to help blend that gap. Use that dark purple on this petal now, again with that crisp. It's not, notice a pattern here. It is all them, like I say, crisp edges that really help. It's such a good way to define this, each individual petal of this rose. Same with that pinky orange, creating that line. And I'd say some of that orange with a little bit of blue in underneath there. Again, just blending this out. And going to the tops with this pinky orange, putting a few crisp lines, and I think the colours are mainly right around here for the majority of this section, but again it is just getting that, just them edges. So there's probably still a little bit left to do. Can let a little bit more of that dry before we actually do that. Just got a bit of bleed there. Tidy that up. That's my fault for not letting the paper dry, being impatient. Don't do what I'm doing. No, I'm only kidding. It's not the end of the world. Put this little section in. Tiny bit of that dark purple. And then I'd say the purple, can blend that together. So like I say, we can come back to the top of this rose. There's a couple more petals I want to add detail on. So we can look now back at this this right hand side, this front petal. I'm just going in, same as before, that really dark line, this purple. And this pink underneath, this other purple underneath I should say. This orange, some blue in, got a bit of that in, say around here. Be careful not to go into that leafy section, and just blending this out with some water. See, there's a little bit of the orangey blue kind of curves around it a little bit. That pinky orange and that purple. Didn't want too much. We can now blend all this together. Lots of water to do this. Really happy with, again, how this is looking so far. Love this purple colour. So there's quite a lot of petals that now connect to this. I'd say these three, the bigger ones of this painting definitely do. So I'm going to go a bit further up and put a thin purple line, dark purple line, just around here a little bit. I'd say then goes into this other purple, the purpley pink. And then even into this pinky orange. These three colours, did well putting them next to each other on the palette. They're all very cohesive with the blending that we've been doing. And same again, we can just blend this out. Pinky orange a lot at the top, thin line, say around there to blend out. Also again at this top one, so doing a couple of petals at once here. We can then blend that. The orangey yellow, sorry, orangey blue. It's a tiny little, so I'm just using a little bit of paint, say thin line detail there. Just again, just putting in that tiny little detail is going to represent that overlap. You can go over it with this pinky orange. We can blend around that. Really easy, simple there. Gonna go in back to that first rose while things are drying over there, and again put down, I'm gonna use this purple, a bit more pink in, put a slight little line there, even here. We can then blend out from. Just a little bit more definition there. And that pinky orange can go over a couple more of the petals as things are starting to dry. Using quite a lot of this colour just so everything's cohesive, and again it is prevalent a lot, but it just gives it that more cohesive feel. Everything's just got similar colour in there somewhere. tiny bit of yellow as well, I would say. Not a lot there, but again, want to let that dry. Can go in with a couple more lines. Orangey blue here, just to tie that together, but because that's dry it's going to leave just a little crisp line where it's needed, so just a small little touch there would make such a difference. So back to the other rose, we can go in that dark purple around here. And a bit of this orangey pink underneath that. We can then blend out a bit of that orangey blue underneath. Bit of that slightly lighter purple, a bit of shape to a couple of these even smaller petals now. Even add a crisp line of that pinky purple there, just to again help define areas. Put in this, wrong colour, sorry. Darker petal here, so I'm going in with that purple, it's got a bit of pink in there to start with. So actually a little bit of that dark purple in that little crease. I think this might be a bit of an overlap of mist, so I can just put that in now. And then blend this out. I'd also say it's got a little bit of yellow in there. Just dotted a little bit in so the colour's there, and then the purple's going to help with the shadow. So definitely more yellow. Like so. dark purple. Just add a little bit of detail here. It's definitely jumping back and forth between the two now. And there's this big leaf here that we've missed. Wanted to let a lot dry around that, but I'm going to go in with that pinky purple. Quite a lot of this on this edge. Then I'd say it goes into more of that orangey red. And we can then blend that out into it. So you can see there's quite a lot of little lines in this petal as well that we can add in next time, probably now. I just want to get this shadow right. So same kind of process we did for this main one. We started with a bit of yellow in the centre, orangey blue, and then again we can blend it all together. There we go. That was really simple. Add a bit more of that purple at the top. Maybe blend a bit more where that orangey blue is. But aside from that, everything is looking good. So we can go in next time, a bit more detail. I'm really happy with how this is looking. You can really see it's starting to take shape. Might even put a little bit of that there. It is quite light in the reference photo, but I think it stands out a bit too much in my picture, so my painting, sorry. Just a little bit there, tie it all together. But like I say, we can go in next time and add further detail to each one. There's also this one here, so I keep looking at the reference photo and noticing little things each time, which is really nice. Use that purpley pink. And then definitely that orangey blue. It's a really dark petal. Being careful of the purple below it. That's not fully dry yet. Might even use that darker purple. We can blend this out. Oh, I love that. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow there as well. Just think it needs a bit more yellow. Nothing too crazy behind that. Yeah, really happy with how this is starting to look. I think I've had a bit of bleed out here that I can neaten up. So it's looking back and seeing, oh no, wait, this could be changed, that could be changed. Do I even want to change it? You don't have to if you're happy with how it's looking, or if you're not confident enough to, that's okay as well, especially if you've never done anything like this before. A bit more shape to this one. Don't think I went into this one before. It's that purple line. And I'm going to use the orange red. Put in a few little lines, like we did earlier with the yellow. So I'm not going to add anything to this one yet, as I think I want that green in there before I do. Just want to see how that looks, because the shadow is coming from that green leaf that's over the top of it. That'll make a lot more sense if you're a bit confused now when we put that in next time. So yeah, I'm going to leave that bit for now. So yeah, I'm just taking a look now to see, is there any lines that I want to put in, any subtle little areas. Maybe put this orangey red, I think is probably going to be the most used colour for this. There's not that much that really needs to be added, which is quite nice. It's, although there is a lot of detail going on, it's not, it doesn't look too crazy. Bit more there. So you can go in now as things have started to dry and define lines a little bit more, like I've just done there. So it is just paying attention to the reference photo, or if you followed me exactly, just following what I'm doing at this point. Like I say, there's not that much. Everything's quite repetitive now. I'm just making sure we get it there. And this is why I wanted to do it stage at a time rather than doing all the layers for like the leaves and things, as it can get quite, you can start to feel like you've got to rush, get a bit impatient, and you don't want to do that, especially because of all the hard work we've put in. So I thought section at a time, and no one's going to feel the need to rush then. See, that's bleeding out. I might actually let this bleed out with the little line should be. No, that's quite nice actually. I'm also putting lines if there's somewhere where there isn't any, like if you just decide this looks like it should have a line there, feel free to do that. It doesn't need to be exact to the reference photo. So yeah, there's a couple of little details I'd like to still put in, mainly around the centre I would say, but I want to wait for this to dry before doing that, as that area is just still wet and it's all just bleeding together still, so we can do that next time. But yeah, I'm really happy with again how this is looking so far. I hope you guys are too, and I can't wait to see you in the next part where we will be continuing, like I say, adding detail and then moving on to the other sections that are left to paint. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye!